Hello and welcome everyone. Welcome to the first Lunch and Learn session in the European time zone. Since everyone's working from home, we thought let's do some sessions during the day so you can actually see other people, although it's online, of course, like most of the social contacts these days are. Today we have Sebass van Boxel, who works at Github, and he will tell us everything about Github Actions and how Github Actions can work for you when you're building solutions for Azure. So since we want to do this session quite short, so you can just do this during your lunch. Sebastian, can you introduce yourself, and then after that we'll just go to the content.
Definitely. First of all, thank you, Geert, for the introduction, and thank you all for joining today. I hope everyone is doing fine. Quite exceptional circumstances, but luckily we have the technology to do this all virtually while you all can have lunch. Talking about technologies, what I will talk with you about today is GitHub Actions, and especially how you can use GitHub Actions in the context of the Azure services you're already using today. Geert already introduced me a bit, but my name is Sebass van Boxel. I'm a solutions engineer at GitHub. That means I help customers, I help GitHub users to implement our technology, but also to integrate GitHub's technology with other services that these customers are using within their software development lifecycle. One you see really often is Azure, obviously. And that being said, we only have 25 minutes, so I'm going to dive straight in with you.
Okay, let me show your screen. Okay, here we go.
Yeah, thank you. So first things first, some of you might think, hey, aren't these sessions about Azure? Yes, you're 100% correct. So what I want to talk with you about today is especially GitHub Actions in the context of Azure and workflow automation. As some of you probably might know, Microsoft acquired GitHub 18 months ago, and today GitHub is the biggest developer platform on the planet. So whatever developer you talk today, they probably have a GitHub account and they probably have code on GitHub. So now we need to think about, okay, how we can deploy that code of that developer to Azure services that you are using today. So even though the session is maybe a bit farther from home for some of you, it's still close. Then the second question you might already have is, isn't GitHub vendor agnostic and multi-cloud? Can I use it with any cloud solution? Correct as well, but also think about it like this. Some people or some customers don't use Azure today, or not all in yet with Azure. So it can help to meet these people where they are today. And it will make it even easier for you and these people to eventually build and deploy applications to Azure. So that's really where the value is. Okay. Introducing GitHub Actions. I will start with a high-level overview. Then I want to dive into a couple of technical concepts of GitHub Actions. And lastly, I'm going to do a short demo. And then you still all have time for questions. What I would like to emphasize is that GitHub Actions is a modular workflow automation tool. So the title of this session is really about CI and CD. And when you talk about workflow automation, CI and CD is one of the obvious suspects, but there are many more things you can automate in the workflow of a developer. So when I go to companies, and I practically see this every week, is that every company has built custom code that automatically sends out release notes, or companies that have built custom code that automatically checks branching name conventions, or optimizes images, or custom code that deploys code to a certain environment. And although we're used to reusing logic from the open source community when we build applications, this isn't really the case with workflow automation. So this is one of the first pillars we look at with GitHub Actions. So how can we have this modular and reusable approach to workflow automation? And a big part of that is CI and CD, obviously. So developers are still often reinventing the wheel. Secondly, we want to think outside of the realm of traditional CI and CD. So automate anything you want. So it's modular and reusable, built on top of open source principles, event driven. So maybe you want to trigger a pipeline when someone creates an issue or adds a label, and that's possible as well. And you should be able to use it in any environment you would like to use. Okay, I want to visualize something for you, and then we can dive into the technical aspect of this. When you today go to a developer and ask the developer to write a pipeline, and this is often what the developer starts with. Enthusiastic, okay, let me build this solution. However, if you go back to that developer after half a day or maybe after a couple of hours, and this is probably what you see. And why I wanted to show you this is because I've been a developer myself. And what often happens is that this developer realizes after an hour, maybe even after 10 minutes, that he or she has written a similar pipeline last week and also last month and 6 months ago and 12 months ago. So what then happens is that you take that pipeline you created previously, you copy paste it to your new workflow, you change a couple of variables, and now you have 2 or maybe even 5 different versions of that similar pipeline, but also 5 different versions you have to maintain now, which as a developer, that's not super motivating to do. And even though you never planned the day with the thought that you are going to copy paste half-baked commands from previous projects or from Stack Overflow, this still is reality for many developers. And this is something I would like to change, and we at GitHub would like to change. So first of all, this modular and reusable approach, like you see in open source. So let's say you have a pipeline definition today, and this pipeline definition deploys or builds, tests, and deploys code to, let's say it's Google Cloud. But now you also want to deploy this code to Azure for proof of concept. Often what you still need to do in many CI systems is that you have to look into the Azure API and the Azure CLI to find out, okay, how I'm going to do this deployment to an Azure web app. But this wheel has been invented thousands of times, and people have done this so many times already. So you should be able to select an existing action, use that in your pipeline, and from that point on, without having to write any code yourself, this code will also be deployed to that environment you select. So that's the first thing, modular and reusable approach. Now, then if you look in the GitHub Actions marketplace, as we call it, and you search for Azure, you already see dozens of actions that are able to interact with Azure services without having the need to explicitly code or develop these things yourself. So whether you want to deploy to an Azure web application, or if you want to set up an AKS cluster, or want to set up a MySQL instance, this has been done thousands of times. So there's no reason to develop this yourself. You can use existing actions that have either been created by the Azure team themselves, but also by the open source community. So in summary, GitHub Actions, very GitHub way to do CI and CD. I shared a couple of links in this slide so you can navigate to it. I'll also check with Geert whether we can get these slides to you all after the presentation. But for a couple of resources to get you started.
Yeah, we will share them on the YouTube or comments, or add them on the Twitter. So that will be fine.
Okay, cool. Okay, let's dive a little bit deeper now, because we have this reusable and modular approach, and it's event-driven. But how does this really look? First of all, let's say you have a piece of automation that you want to reuse. I was talking to a company the other day, and they have logic in place that automatically sends out a text message to a security team whenever a new critical vulnerability is found in their source code. Then you could create an action that sends out this text message, and you can publish this action on GitHub, and then it can be reused by anyone else. You can do this in 2 ways. You can package it in a Docker container, and then someone points to the Docker registry. can just write a simple script or a JavaScript action, which is kind of serverless because you don't need to package it and it just executes this JavaScript action within the context of that pipeline. So on one hand, you have the actions themselves that execute the logic. That is that wheel that you don't have to reinvent. And on the other side, you have the workflow. So what you see on the right side is a simple workflow in GitHub Actions. And in this case, on top, you can see it listens to the push event. This is what you do with traditional CI and CD. Whenever someone pushes new code to your repository, it triggers a pipeline. Secondly, you see two things. So you see these steps, where first of all, it executes a one-line script to remove a folder. But the last one is that it calls an existing action. Specifically, that action is then executed in the context of this pipeline in this workflow. Also, if you look at the last line, line number 22, it has secrets management built in. So if you want to manage your secrets directly within GitHub, then that is also possible. Okay, this is really high level. Let's dive a little bit deeper into what the possibilities are. First, two things I would like to mention. Whether you want to use Linux, Windows, Mac OS, self-hosted, or cloud version, that's really up to you. Again, it's event-driven. So if you want to trigger this pipeline whenever someone creates a new release in GitHub, then that's also possible. And as you would expect from any CI and CD systems, logs are searchable, and you can publish your artifacts either to GitHub or to any other artifact management system. Okay. A real life example, Java and Maven project. As you can see on the right side, there isn't any really custom code that is written to do a checkout, to set up Java, to build and package this, and to test this. It's all using reusable components from the Actions marketplace in this case. So first it checks out the code, then it sets up Java. You give it a variable. In this case, we want to use version 1.8. You don't have to download this yourself. This all happens. It does the build, it does the test, and then it uses a reusable action again to upload the artifacts, in this case, to the artifact management system. So in 24 lines, we have a complete build, test, and publish of this online application. I want to dive a little bit deeper, and then I want to show you the demo. Events. This is really an important concept when you look at GitHub Actions, because you can do anything you want with it. Right-hand side of this slide, I will go over them one by one. So first line, listen for the push and pull request event. Whenever someone pushes new code, or whenever someone creates a new pull request, trigger the pipeline. But you can also have certain qualifications. So if you want to trigger a pipeline, and let's say you have certain naming conventions, and you want to make sure that whenever someone creates a new tag or a new branch, that it checks this for you, or you do a notification on Slack if you want to do something like this. So whenever someone creates a new tag, trigger this pipeline. Then third one is the dispatch endpoint. The dispatch endpoint basically is an endpoint within your GitHub repository that can be called by any third-party tool. So if you have an Azure web app that should be able to trigger pipelines from within GitHub, then that web app can do a post request to the GitHub endpoint, and then that will trigger that pipeline with the payload you give it. So anything really is possible. You don't just have to listen to GitHub events. Then we have the push event that does some qualification on the branch name. And last but not least, a schedule. If you want to use a cron job for your CI or CD build or the pipeline you have defined. So let's say you want to check your code for vulnerabilities once every week. Then you set up a cron job and you use an action that searches for vulnerabilities in your code. And again, you don't have to write this logic yourself because this wheel has been invented. use any environment you want. And I think this is also a good moment to mention that GitHub Actions, it's built on existing technology. It's built on Azure technology. It is built on a big part of the technology that is used for Azure pipelines, which is a really feature-rich CI and CD system. But it's also good to know that many of the developers that were originally working on the Azure CI or Azure pipelines are now also working on GitHub Actions. So so you'll have this feature-rich CI and CD and workflow automation system directly integrated within the GitHub platform with all the benefits of this reusability of open source and the event-based system. So also whatever virtual environment you would like to use or whatever container you would like to use, it's up to you. Steps, and I'm going to dive a little bit deeper into this in the demo. You define steps, and for every step, like in CI and CD, you define what it should do. Whether you want to execute a command line script or you want to point to an action. And you can point to an action by pointing to a specific repository and a version of that repository. So this could be a tag, a specific branch, or the SHA hash that you use for that specific commit. You can point to every version you like, or to a Docker registry. Again, like with CI and CD, you want to have the ability to set environment variables, to use secrets, but also you want to have the ability to set outputs from one action and reuse that output in a second action. So the example I gave you, there was an action that searches for vulnerabilities in code. That's one action, and then the results, so all the vulnerabilities that have been found with that action can then be consumed by a second action, which might be that action that automatically sends out a text message to a security team. So inputs, outputs, secret management, and environment variables that you can use within your pipelines. Last but not least, and then I'm going to dive into the demo with you, conditionals and expressions. Maybe you only want to trigger a specific step if you touch a specific file. Or maybe you only want to run a specific job when another job fails. So what you can then do is you say, okay, if the previous job fails, only then run this action. So to give you a CI and CD example, there was an action today that connects your GitHub pipeline to your smart home. So you can automatically flash your lights in the office if you would like to. If CI and CD fails, trigger this smart home action that flashes the lights in the office. So everyone is notified about it. Okay. Demo time. That's always the most exciting thing during these sessions. I have a simple web application, and let me show you what it looks like. It's hosted in Azure, and it's a bookstore where you can buy new books, you can add new books, you can subscribe to a newsletter, you can do anything you like. This isn't a coding demo, so I'm not going to add any new features, but I want to show you what you can do with GitHub Actions. So you have the GitHub folder, and you have the workflows, and let's look at the build pipeline. First thing I would like to mention is this thing supports autocomplete. So if we look at on, these are the events that should trigger this pipeline. All these events are available, and that can be used to run this pipeline. So if I want to also trigger this pipeline whenever someone forks my project, then that's possible as well. But let's stick to push now, because it should build our code whenever we push code. It sets up Java, it checks out the code, it does some caching, and all the way in the end, it publishes these artifacts to the GitHub package registry. Okay. First of all, matrix builds. This gives you the ability, if you build a library or something else that should be reused by other systems, to test this implicitly for many systems at once without explicitly defining every combination. So let's say now we test this, we do this build for Ubuntu and macOS for Java version 1.8. So this will generate 2 builds. If I want to generate 4 builds, means I also want to test this for version Java version 1.7 and version 1.8, then every combination will generate a build. If I would also add Windows to this, then we have 6 builds. Java version 1.6, we have 9 builds, and so forth. So let me create a pull request to also trigger this pipeline. Azure Live Demo, there we go. Let's create pull request. This kicks off 4 builds, as you can see. Let me show you another thing in the workflow file. So now what we do, so we do the build and eventually we push this to a Docker registry on GitHub. But maybe you use a different artifact management system, or you want to also push this to your artifact management system. If you use JFrog, for example, which is a popular one, Artifactory, then there are actions that help you to do this. If you search just for artifacts, then all these actions show up that enable you to publish these artifacts to an artifact system you're using, or do other things with the artifacts that have been generated by your builds. Okay. Now let's go back to the pull request. I want to show you another thing. This does the build, and it does a build and it publishes to the Docker registry. But let's say we want to automatically deploy this code whenever someone adds a new label. So this is the label event within GitHub. So with this, you give developers the freedom, while at the same time, you as ops can make sure that they only deploy what should be deployed. So let's say we want to deploy this to a test environment, but my builds haven't completed yet. So we deploy to test. And as you can see, something happens with the bot. And what I would like to show you now, so it goes. There we go. As you can see, fail to trigger deployments. So I'm using an action that does this deployment for me, and that is triggered whenever I add a new label. And this action defines that this should only be, I can only deploy my code when my Ubuntu Java version 1.8 is successful. I don't have to write any code myself. This is declarative. So I tell it what the required context is. And it can only do this when it is actually successful. And as you can see, it's still running the Ubuntu 18.04 1.8 build. So let's wait for it to finish. Okay, it's finished now. So now when I add this again, go to test. Okay. I can immediately see that this action requested a deployment that is pending. And this deployment happens from within GitHub Actions. And it deploys it to a review environment within Azure in this case. So when we go to the Actions tab, let's see, I called it test. Not a really good naming convention. Checks out the code. It logs into Azure. This is again an action, a reusable action. It creates the review app in my Azure environment, and then it deploys the container that was created when I pushed my code to this pull request. It grabs that container and publishes it to the review app I'm creating as we speak. I, as a developer, don't have to navigate to Azure to see the status of this deployment. So this information is directly available within GitHub. As you can see, I requested the deployment, the test 1 minute ago, and it is still in progress. The moment this, actually this one, finishes, so it's deploying the container now, then it will show me, okay, the deployment was successful, and now this is the URL to your environment, and this is where you can check it out. One more thing I want to show you, then we can go to questions, and then we'll wait for the deployment. It will take a couple of minutes. So the example I gave you of whenever a new vulnerability is found, text message my security team. There's actually an Azure action that automatically creates an item on your Azure ports in Azure DevOps the moment a new vulnerability is found in GitHub. So now your security team doesn't have to manually create this item on the backlog. The moment you have a vulnerability in your system, it will automatically create this item on the backlog of your team so they can check it out. So again, this is an existing action that can be reused in your software development lifecycle without having to create this code yourself. And that's one of the most important pillars when you look at GitHub Actions. I see we have 4 minutes to go. Geert, any questions? And then we can check out whether the deployment was successful.
I don't see any questions in the chat yet. One question I have about this vulnerability check is that that's only being triggered in an action, right? So you would normally do this like on a cron job then, or how would you do this? Because I normally already get some dependabot emails when stuff is off.
Yeah, that's a good question. So this could be another event within GitHub. Whenever a new vulnerability is found, trigger this pipeline. But
is that trigger already there right now?
Not explicitly, but you could do it.
Okay.
But really good question. So let me see actually how this one does it. In this case, this one checks it whenever code is merged into the master branch. Check for vulnerabilities. If then a vulnerability is found, create a new item on the backlog.
Yeah, that's logical, but that only triggers it when you actually change your code. But when you have like your stale project that's just running somewhere, of course, it has a lot of dependencies as well that might have vulnerabilities. You might want to have updates on those as well.
Yeah, gotcha.
But the simplest solution would be a cron job, I guess. So just trigger a cron and check for the vulnerabilities.
Yeah, that would be a great solution. So what we see, so we also send out an email to project owners when a vulnerability is found, but people get many notifications. So if you have a system in place to either automatically add this to the backlog based on the severity of a vulnerability, then that takes away friction, and then people are actually going to fix it. By the way, let's see whether the deployment was successful. As you can see, it created a unique environment within Azure. I think it needs a cold start, so let's need to wait probably another minute. So for every pull request, it will create this environment to review the application. And I have this link directly available within GitHub. So I don't have to check any statuses in Azure or whatever to see what is going on with my pull request. Any other questions?
I don't see any questions in the chat. So, well, I think we'll just leave it with that.
Sebass, 29 minutes.
Wow. Yeah, thanks very much for this this session. Hopefully everyone enjoyed it during their lunch. Have a small break while learning new stuff. This was a new experiment for us as well to do this during lunch. Well, we already had some people from Australia on the chat that said, well, it's not really lunch for us. But yeah, that happens when you do stuff online. It's always lunch somewhere and breakfast or whatever.
Exactly.
We held a poll a month ago, and we asked what would be the best time for you, and a lot of people said, well, having lunch sessions would be quite cool if you keep them short enough, so we can just have some lunch while learning new stuff. And I think this was a really great first example of how we can do these sessions in in half an hour.
Yeah, and thanks again for the invite. I'll make sure you get the deck as well, so you can publish the deck. Send it along.
Yes, okay, so thanks everyone for watching. I just noticed we have 499 subscribers, so please subscribe so we get to this 500 mark. And hope you like the show. We're back on Monday. Esteban will host a show then from the US, also a lunch and learn session, so it will be lunch in the US. So if you're in the Netherlands like me, it will be at 6:30 in the evening. When you're in Australia, like some of the viewers, then it will probably be somewhere in the middle of the night. So you can watch a recording or stay up all night. It's up to you. So on Monday, we will have a session by Josh Gavrick about running Windows Virtual Desktops in Azure. So hope to see you again on Monday or in any other shows in the future. See ya and take care. Bye-bye.
All right, thank you.